Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to be talking about how to defend yourself against malware. One of the hottest topics and most frequently asked questions that we get nowadays is about this, so that would be a great topic for this month's webinar. So without further ado, let's get started. So it's a constantly growing threat. I think everybody understands that, but malicious online pop-ups are just becoming more and more complex, making it harder for everyone to decipher what's going on. And these things just trick people into installing themselves, really. It's not that even there's a lot of security holes that these things are getting through. Its main fact is that people are actually accidentally installing it themselves, almost like installing any other program. If you have permission, and most people need permission to do those kind of things on their computers with the typical agency management system and software out there, that these things are just allowed to install freely. So how does it spread? It's an important thing to talk about and understand, so we can then talk about what to watch out for and then ultimately how to defend yourself and block some of those threats. So malware is often put into websites who give those enticing looking pop-ups, and you click on that pop-up and you get the malware. Malware still can and does spread by infections based on whatever software you might have being unpatched. Some of the common ones that are accessible to those kind of attacks would be Adobe Acrobat, Java, Flash would be another, Windows Media Player, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, you name it. And then, of course, the Windows operating system being another large potential hole. And software applications are a favorite target of the malware writers, too, because they just know what things people don't usually patch. So what to watch out for? We're going to cover some real specific examples here about what these things can lead to and how to identify them properly and protect yourself. So online chat is one. Gaming websites, whether it be websites that are actually for playing games or just for talking about games. Some things called cracking and Keygen websites. We'll talk about what those are, and Warez sites as well. Social networking sites. This is a big one because every other webinar I seem to see online now are about how we can bring social networking into the business. But it's important to know how to protect yourself when you're on these social networking sites, what things to look out for. Email risks. Emails are often a topic when you're talking about viruses, but more and more commonly, the malware is getting in via email. And then we're going to give lots of examples of these pop-ups and how to identify and how to handle them. Hopefully everybody will leave with at least one of those in memory, so if you see it, you know what to do if you run into it. So dangers of online chat. Online chat just not quite as common as it used to be, with a lot of the chat built into the social networking websites or people doing blogging or different kind of Twitter-like chatting. But a large number of infections are still spread via internet relay chat or these different types of chat websites. What you'll find is that I guess the more non-business related the content, the more likely these websites are to have malware in them that can infect you, via any of those methods that we mentioned earlier. The biggest one being the web browser or operating system, or Adobe Flash, because we are talking about these websites. There are internet chat programs or different chat clients like MSN Messenger or the old AOL Instant Messenger. We're talking about websites here. Those programs themselves generally don't carry malware. Interestingly enough, though, a lot of them are producing advertising and pop-ups. That's how they are able to stay free, is because they're ad subsidized. So it is possible that some of those advertisements one day could start carrying it as well. You just never know. So gaming websites, the architecture of online gaming and in these gaming websites, it just creates an open door for hackers, because there's usually lots of exposure to these servers on the internet, so people can play them, so they can get updates, so they can tie in with news websites and people's phones and whatnot. And you have a greater risk of playing these online games and being attacked because generally fewer protections exist. A lot of these games that are based on websites are real small things from real small companies, and it takes a lot of time and money and resources to properly secure and design a very secure environment for that website. And it's not uncommon that traditional firewalls and anti-malware software can't see a lot of these intrusions and attacks coming from these game websites, just because of the way they're written. They're allowing this code on the site to run as part of playing your game. And yes, it does include games on social networking websites. We'll talk about the social networking a little more too, and how these work and interact, and why that's the case. So dangers of cracking in Keygen websites. Well, what these are for starters is these are websites that are generally used for getting some kind of illegal software. The term cracking is for like a computer term about taking a trial version of software or a free version of software and turning it into the paid version illegally. Unfortunately, there are a lot of places out there that still do this, and generally you have to download stuff, and oftentimes those things you download might actually do what they say, but they also do have this malware and lots of other bad stuff accompanying that download. These usually come in the forms of just the execution programs that you have to download. There's also lots of links in these websites, and they make them pretty tricky, where you might go to one of these websites and see like 9 different download links for this thing that you shouldn't be, but maybe are looking for. And they're very, very tricky, including the ads and banners. Also a big target for the infections. So, these websites not only being illegal and you shouldn't deal with them anyway, but if somebody happens to be there, they're one of the most difficult things to safely browse through. And along with that, these things called Warez sites. These are the places where that are out there for downloading this illegal stuff. If anybody's heard of the Pirate Bay, they're kind of like a search engine and a download portal for all this bad stuff. And they've been, a target of a lot of different attacks. They've been in the news a lot too. So they've gained a lot of media and public recognition at the same time of becoming these big targets. So more people go there to download stuff that they shouldn't, and they're probably the biggest, if not one of the biggest targets for these malware people. So, just opening up these websites can set off that exploit a lot of times without actually even downloading it. And by the time that you even know something's going on, it's usually too late. So I talked about social networking, and I think everybody's kind of wondering about that one. One of the things is that most links on the social networking websites takes you to other websites. They're often meant to, be displayed like they're in a part of Facebook, or, you got the Facebook banner ad at the top still. But really, you're being directed to a different website. And Facebook or LinkedIn or whomever, they have no control of what's on those sites that they're being linked to. One of the quickest and, most ineffective ways of thinking you're safe is just assuming that all the links on these sites are good. Kind of like doing a Google search. You're being sent somewhere else. So a good example is, I don't know if everybody's heard of Farmville on Facebook. When you're playing that, you're actually no longer on Facebook's website. Emails can make themselves often look like they're from social networking sites too. That's a kind of a phishing attack. You need to be very careful when you get emails that say they're from these social networking sites. One of the more common ones is these fake friend requests. Hey, I saw you on this site, want you to join me, click here. Even though they might look exactly like the social networking site, they're really not. And when you click on one of these infected links or spam or whatnot, the Internet Explorer is going to launch that site, and it's going to, again, install it without really any notice or interaction that you've been infected, but you've probably got it. There was actually an interesting article posted last week also. There's a company that's currently working on an add-in for Facebook that will kind of intelligently look at all the links that comes up in Facebook and scans them for viruses and malware, and then it will kind of run in between, and if you click on one of those, it'll stop you. Um, Microsoft Internet Explorer also has a smart screen filter and phishing checkers built in, and a lot of the other web browser companies now are building in these things that are kind of like databases of safe links. But for now, still most of them are ineffective when it comes to dealing with this bad stuff that is posted on these social networking websites. So just like everything else, if you're going to be on one of these social networking websites, make sure that you're going to keep it to business related activities only. And it's important to note we are seeing a big shift in the trends. 80% of malware nowadays is actually proven to be coming from legitimate websites that have just been compromised. It's estimated that an average of about 6,000 new websites a day are getting malware injected into them. This is where the malware writers or people can find a way that they can sneak that malware in. And that could be in the website itself because their web server is unpatched and unprotected, or it could be from the banners and advertisements. So with having this in mind, I think it brings a much higher likelihood that users doing non-business related web browsing at work, even on websites that they think are safe, could be definitely susceptible to an infection. And I've listed a couple surprising ones here that we have seen people in the recent past get infected from. This Freud Free Press and CNN. Generally everybody thinks those are safe websites, but all of these websites have banner advertisements and pop-ups, and it doesn't take a lot for somebody just to write a banner with a little bit of something bad in it. So Detroit Free Press may seem like it's a very safe thing, but really it's, again, probably not business related, and important just to drill that point home about not allowing any kind of non-business related activities at work. You got to remember this. It can affect their productivity, sure, but hopefully you can see now that it'll definitely affect the computer's health too. Web-based email. Most infections that actually spread from email don't get in through the corporate email systems. Most of the times they're getting in from people's personal email that they're looking at from work. These websites are secure. Obviously you've got to sign in to Hotmail or Yahoo Mail or Gmail. And, I think sometimes it gives people a false sense of security. A lot of them even have the built-in antivirus programs now that can scan your downloads before you actually open them. But lots of these emails have links that will take you to bad places. Also, there are a lot of filters and programs out there that actually ignore risks on secure sites or don't scan when you're on secure sites as a default. So it's important to know that if you do have a filtering or a scanning or a blocking solution, look to see if they're actually configured to do blocking on secure sites. Be surprised how many that actually are not. And general email risks, and these are for malware, yes, but they're also for viruses, for spam, whatever you can think of. And some good rules of thumb for email as a whole are watching out for these dangerous kind of attachments. There's no software company out there that is going to send you a patch in an executable file form. We definitely don't for our customers, and I don't know of any other IT companies that do either. Microsoft will never send somebody a patch. Adobe will never send somebody a patch. And those are some of the more commonly faked things. So if you see any kind of emails come through with these kind of attachments, even if they're from a source that you recognize and you're not expecting it, the general rule of thumb and good practice is to just delete those, not even open the attachments. Once you open one of these things, you might say, well, gosh, that's funny, nothing happened. I just double-clicked it, and it must be a bad file. Once you double-click that, it's usually gotcha. And it can bring in these different Trojans and worms and whatnot that will then start emailing everybody in your address book and spread themselves from there. And that's exactly why they usually look safe, because it's usually from somebody that you were in their address book possibly. That's just how they're built to spread.